المهدي المهدي قادم قادم ناصر ناصر الثروات المهدي المهدي ثائر ثائر شارع شارع سيف الثار المهدي المهدي فجر فجر للأحرار المهدي المهدي أمل أمل يطلق في الدنيا ريبان المهدي المهدي
Assalamu alaikum, dear viewers. Welcome back. Today we have another episode of The Awaited One. On today's show we have Maulana Ali Abbas Rizvi.
Assalamu alaikum.
Thank you for coming in, Maulana. And today we have another interesting schedule of topics to discuss around the Messiah figure or the Mahdi figure in Islamic religion. Okay, you mentioned this idea of utopia. Can you explain a bit more about that?
I think that most religions believe in it. And we had that, I think we had the show where we looked at all the various religions and their belief in the 12th Imam. I think we started off from Hinduism and then Buddhism, Taoism. We looked at 7 religions, I think. Each one of them then predict the coming of a savior to establish utopia. Why is it important? What is a utopia, essentially?
Yeah.
Utopia, on a basic level, is a place where there is no pain and suffering. It's perfect. We believe that in this world we can eradicate pain and suffering and get to a level of bliss, heaven on earth. Is this important? Yes, it is, for the completion of the cycle of existence.
Yeah.
When it started, Adam and Eve were in bliss. Go prior to Adam and Eve. From the very beginning the universe was started, it was in bliss. Why? Because it wasn't lower down on the chain of existence, it was high up on the higher up you go, the more bliss. Cycle has to complete itself. After death and destruction and war and all sorts of other things, which we are against completely, what happens is that finally, before the world perishes, there's bliss.
Oh, what will happen before this establishment of the utopia when the Mahdi comes back? What will start happening in the world as we lead up to this? We hear many hadiths about tall buildings and strange hijabs and things. But
again, these are all specifics. I think we need to look at it generally. In the same way that they say that when the 12th Imam alayhi salam comes, the world will be filled with justice. In the same way, before the coming of the 12th Imam, the world will be filled with injustice. What does injustice mean? Let's not look at it. Don't look at it on a peripheral level. Go deeper. Injustice means a disbalance in everything. The biggest disbalance ourselves. How many people look at problems?
absolutely, we clearly
Multiplied problems.
have this
Disbalance.
Yeah.
So, and that's why, mashallah, the psychiatrists are making a lot of money, because there's a disbalance. So injustice doesn't necessarily mean wars and destruction. It's a part of it. Disbalance is the disbalance of the human being, which causes then these wars, essentially.
So how can justice exist alongside injustice? We can have injustice and injustice in the world, or is it?
So let's develop that argument. So the fact is that before the coming of the Imam, the world will be filled with injustice. That doesn't mean that there won't be good people, though.
Of course, yeah.
In the same way, when the Imam does come, it's not 100% people who are going to be good either.
Yeah.
Because as the tradition says, there will be a woman who will kill the Imam. Obviously, she's evil for doing that action.
Yeah.
It's the majority of the world will be filled with justice, in the same way as the majority of the world was filled with injustice. So that's where the difference lies. In this world, can justice exist? Of course it can, because every human being's fitrah is divine. So we actually go back towards justice. What happens is that as time goes away, what is the 12th Imam? He's the antidote for a cancer which is spreading. If we don't call him back now, what's going to happen is that as time goes on, the cancer begins to spread. And as the cancer spreads, then the antidote becomes very difficult. It becomes very difficult to tackle. Our problem then becomes worse. Our suffering increases, the suffering for our children increases, the suffering for our societies. Call the Imam back, you cut the cancer.
Okay.
So what we need to do, the goodness is inside of us. We need to extract that goodness. When we extract the goodness, where there's enough good people,
But surely, Maulana, that we have to prepare the actual world for the Mahdi, and that it couldn't get to that extent of suffering, that he couldn't come back and do his work. Or could he provide us a stronger medicine to our disease?
There will always be goodness. Eventually human consciousness will rise. I'll give you an example. 124,000 prophets. Nations upon nations betrayed their prophets. They were immature.
Yeah.
In the time of the Prophet, they left him in Uhud. In the time of Amir al-Mu'minin, they left him in the Battle of Siffin, Khawarij. After thousands of years, when did finally mankind mature? Karbala. Only
Okay.
time in existence. Mankind became baligh in Karbala. We are waiting a second Karbala to come, which is then, and the tradition has it, when the 12th Imam comes.
Why does mankind become mature? in Karbala?
Mankind then becomes mature because in Karbala they became mature. The time was right. The people ask, why didn't Imam Hassan stand up? He did stand up. The fact is, people say he didn't fight. He did fight. The day Amir al-Mu'minin died, 40,000 people that night gave bay'ah to him. An army was prepared to fight against Muawiyah. It wasn't the fact that Imam didn't fight. The fact was that everyone, bar 11 people, deserted him. That's the difference.
Yes.
Where were the Muslims weren't mature. The right combination came. It's like a telescope. When the right light reflects or refracts on the different glasses is when you see that point.
Imam
Focal
Hussein,
point.
he only had 72
And that's
supporters
all
from
you
his
need.
family. Okay.
No,
But what's
it
magic
wasn't
about-
all from his family. And that's the difference. The difference was that those people, and I like to say, it was like the united colours of Benetton. They were Jewish background, Christian background, black, white, East European. You found everyone from all fields of life. That tells us that humanity came together when it needed 72 men only, or
Okay.
some traditions say 100. His family were one part of it.
It was the makeup of
It was the
actual
makeup of the
army. Yeah.
Look at the way that the Imam calls Habib ibn Madahir. Look at the way he writes a letter to Habib. من حسين ibn Ali إلى رجل فقيه Habib ibn Madahir. He's calling some people.
Yeah.
He didn't call everyone. The Imam writes one or two letters. And one of them is to Habib. Why? He's exceptional. One man is sufficient than one entire nation if the man is of quality. You don't
Okay.
require thousands of followers, you require one. Imam Hussein, what did he do? Sacrificed himself. What did he do? From blood came victory.
So this idea of the actual number of people is not important.
Not at all.
But when it comes to the Mahdi and the
40
end of
people.
time, we will require a majority of mankind?
No, 40
or
people.
just 40 people?
Tabari says, Abu Sufyan comes to Amir al-Mu'minin, says, I can fill the streets out of Medina. Let's go and get your Khilafat back. So Abu Sufyan, when have you become, this famous tradition, when have you become so interested, lover of Islam? Then Imam says, he says, but Abu Sufyan, if I had 40 people, then I would stand up.
What's the significance of 40?
Again, all right, I'll get to that. Just finish one more thing.
Yeah.
And that was one Bahlul comes to the sixth Imam. He says to the sixth, there were Shias were sitting around. And Shias are the elite, right? So they're the elite of the Muslims, followers of the sixth Imam.
Yeah.
Bahlul says, you got 11 people here. Imam says, 5. Raises his hands. People ask, what is he saying? He says, Bahlul was saying to me that you have 11 people. You have followers here. Why don't you go and fight for your right? Imam says, even if I had 5 sincere followers, I would have stood up. Significance of 40. Sayyid Mahdi Bahr al-Ulum, if you look at his works, speaks on 40. 40, the number of purification.
Yeah.
All of the prophets, Isa, 40 days. Where did he go? Into the desert. Musa, 40 days. Where did he go? To the mountain. Our prophet, 40 days. Where did he go? 40 days, self-purification. 40 people, good people, the world is purified. That's all we need, 40 people. When the world is purified in the tradition, it says, one man will be like steel, like a mountain. The mountains will crumble, his iman won't crumble. And when he fights in the way of Allah, then you see that he's superhuman basically. One man is worth like 10 or 100 guys. Mm-hmm. From those 40 will come 313. From those 313 will come 10,000. 313 is the number of men, as we mentioned the 313, right?
Yeah.
Why do we mention 313? Because 313, the world will be divided into 313 provinces. Each one of those 313 will be running a province in the world. They are the governors of the 12th Imam. That's why the 330 number is there. We only require 40 people, but the combination needs to be there. If we have 40 good men, it's not going to happen. Because what we require is the combination of men, women and children. When it equals, then the Imam comes. So it's that combination. You know when you go into a safe, you pin in the numbers. When the number is pinned of the right women, men, children, click, it opens up. So when people say you've got thousands of ayatollahs, we don't need thousands of ayatollahs. And we don't need thousands of,
And how many Shia Muslims do we claim to have right now in the world?
200 million, 300
Yeah.
million, 400 million maybe.
Yeah.
40 good
40.
people. 40
40 good
40
people.
combination. When the combination hits, the 72 men. Look, in the time of the Prophet, you had Abu Dhar, you had Salman, you had Miqdad, you had Ammar, right? You had all of these guys, yeah? But the combination of the 72 and the Sayyidah Shuhada. Sayyidah Zainab needed to be there, she wasn't there. For example, Sakina needed to be there, Asghar needed to be there. Imam waited, how long? 10 days. Son was born, he says, now let's move. Waited for the birth of a child. When he was born, Imam says, now we're ready, let's move. Why now? Could have left 2 weeks before, 3 weeks before. No. Everything needs to be settled in its right time.
Yeah.
Then the movement takes place.
Okay, so Imam, Maulana, why is the Imam in a quotation at the moment?
That's a good question as well. Humanity has a track record of killing its prophets, of betraying its leaders. Bani Israel killed thousands of prophets. Wadi al-Salam is full of prophets who have been killed. All of our Imams were killed. Humanity has a very weird way of compensating humanity. Imam has been taken up. Why? One of the reasons is for protection. Right? Imam's protection. The fact that he's protected from his enemies. The other reason is that we will not cherish something if it's in front of us. It's our nature, right?
Yeah.
How many people cherish the Prophet until he didn't leave? You know, they say that a famous mystic is a dead mystic. You appreciate a mystic after he dies. A good leader is a dead leader. Kufa didn't appreciate Amir al-Mu'mineen until 2013. And they realized that what we did back then, if we'd have dealt with him properly, then today we wouldn't be here today. So we don't appreciate people. Lack of appreciation, lack of understanding as well. By the Imam being taken away from us, at least now it gives us that opportunity to prepare ourselves, to call the Imam back, to work on ourselves. So I think there's multiple reasons. It's a test. At the same time, the refinement takes place. Refinement of what? The true believers from the fluctuating ones.
Yeah.
So I think in all, it is in a way it's also a benefit, and there's very dodgy grounds that I'm saying it's a benefit. The reason why I'm saying it's a benefit, and I'm saying it not in the literal way of the benefit, but obviously the Imam being here would be the biggest benefit, so it's people are not ready. It's like that story that goes, Wahid al-Bahbahani, right? You get that famous story whereby he comes to Karbala, the famous Usuli that basically debated with the Akhbaris, and he took out Akhbarism from Karbala. Wahid al-Bahbahani at that stage was unknown. He comes from Iran, from Bahbahani, comes to Karbala. Every single day he leads the prayers. One day it comes to that stage where he says, and after every prayer, as was the tradition, he'd give a hadith. So after Maghrib prayers, he'd give a hadith. After Isha, he'd give a hadith. Came to the point where one day Wahid al-Bahbahani says to the people, the not coming back of the Imam is actually beneficial to you. And they didn't take that lightly. And all hands were up and they basically chucked him out. And they say that they took the prayer mat and they chucked the prayer mat at him. And they said, look, leave. And he left and he went into his house. And the caretaker of the mosque comes and he knocks on the door. He spits on him and he chucks the remaining of his clothes. And so it says that afterwards, the Bahman says, fine. Fajr time, there's a knock on the door. Says, who is that? Says, I'm the caretaker. I said, look, you've already spat on me. You're going to break my legs when I open the door. He says, no, I want to apologize to you. He says, why? He just says, open the door. He says, open the door. Fell on his feet, apologized. What changed in the last 6-7 hours? He says, what changed was that I went to sleep. And in my sleep I saw that the dhuhr of the Imam had come. And when the Imam came forward, he said to me, Fulan, what I want from you is, let's say, your house. I gave the money, gave the house. Says, those clothes which you're wearing, you haven't paid khums on it. Give the clothes to me, then the haram money. For example, that zakat that you should have given. And one by one, the Imam started listing. And just like that, it came out of my mouth. Imam, are you here to make us better? Our living standards better? Or are you here to make it worse? That moment I woke up and I realized I'm not ready for the Imam al-Islam. Because the coming of the Imam initially will not be easy for the believer. Can you sacrifice everything, including your children, for the Imam? And the majority of the world today couldn't even sacrifice their cars and their wealth. So
I agree,
hence, we need to prepare.
Yeah, we've had an excellent discussion this evening. We've discussed the role of man in the world and his relationship with the divine. We've discussed the Quran and how the Quran reflects the whole of creation and explains our purpose here. We've discussed the role of the Imam and the Prophet and their nature as perfect men. We've discussed why they're not here, why Imam Mahdi is in our quotation, he's hidden from the world. And we've discussed why he'll come back, the purpose of a utopia, the necessity for equity and justice in the world. Finally, to round up, I think it'll be nice if we could discuss the actual nature of a perfect man. Who is the perfect man? What's their origin? What's their aim? And what's their function?
Yeah, the perfect man. By default, it is a man who's perfect.
Yeah.
Right? To the capacity of man, not the capacity of God. So there's a lot of arguments that people say, can man become perfect? Yes, man can become perfect. Why? Because man is finite, physical. The physical being and existence in the physical world can be perfected.
Okay.
When it's perfected. But what is the perfect man? The perfect man is a link between three levels. In terms of the human body, sensory,
Yeah.
spirit, and intellect. 3 levels. We have 3 makeups. You've got the intellect, you've got your spirit, and you've got your senses, hands, feet.
Yeah.
Perfect man gels those 3. Go further. What is a perfect man? We have 3 worlds. One world is Nasut, the physical world of man. The higher world than that is what? The Malakut, which is Alam Barzakh. When you die, you go to Alam Barzakh. But you don't necessarily need to die just to see it. Barzakh is here. It's taking place right now, right here.
And what is the difference, Moulana, between Barzakh
Yeah,
and this realm?
The difference is this, that the higher up we go, the more we become simple. Simple meaning all of these compounds become disattached. So
Yeah.
the physical world has 2 things. Form, matter.
Okay, so
Right.
we have structure, we have shapes,
Shape,
and
and
we're
we
made
have
of particles
matter.
like
Yeah.
atoms and so on. Yeah.
Alam Barzakh has form but has no matter. So you see one is shredded off. So you have forms. Best example, you go to sleep, you see a dream. That's Barzakh.
So
That's
it's the
happening now.
imaginal realm.
Imaginal
Yeah.
realm. But there's 2 types of imaginal realms. One is connected to your mind, and one is disconnected from your mind. A lot of people get that confused.
What's the difference between those?
Yeah, so you find that, a lot of students when they study philosophy, they think about the imaginal realm and they compare it to the mind. Then they think, okay, the actual imaginal realm is in the mind. It's not the case. Your mind produces, you have imagination, khayal, right? It produces a script, or it produces this kind of show, whatever it's going on in your mind. That mimics the nature of barzakh, imaginal realm, alam al-mithal. But alam al-mithal is different from the human mind. One is connected to the human mind, the other one is disconnected. So let's say, for example, in barzakh, it is possible in barzakh that because of your imagination you can build a snake. That's why it's dangerous, because it's the realm of the imagination. When you're put into your barzakh, when the Imam says, I fear for you in barzakh, those snakes and those scorpions, what are they? Are they physical snakes or scorpions? They're your evil deeds which are in your imagination that come out. You are manifesting them. Hence comes back the idea, it's off point now, but when we talk about bodily resurrection, the only person within history to have ever proved bodily resurrection other than the Prophets and the Imam, the only one was Mullah Sadra. No philosopher could prove it. Why? Because he talks about when you go through motion, going back to the idea of motion, and your body separates from the physical matter and becomes spiritual, i.e. when you go into barzakh. In barzakh, your imagination perfects itself, that when the Day of Judgment comes, within a blink you can form your physical body again. So the mind then has power over the physical body, that in a second you can form a body. Power of the imagination. Imagination is important. That's why Ibn Sina said, what differentiates a prophet from man is that his imagination is powerful, more powerful. We don't just stop there. We say all of his faculties are powerful, but they believe that, philosophers believe that wahi itself is not literally a man coming and talking to you.
Yeah.
Wahi is, there's a part of your intellect, which is what? Known as the holy intellect. Aql Qudsi. And that's linked to the imaginal realm. That's linked to your imagination. When both of them come together, divine wahi, when it comes through that. and it has an effect on the entire physical body, and has an effect on that person's intellect and his emotions and everything else. So really coming back, perfect man then as well.
Yeah,
on,
well,
sorry.
I wanted to just add in there that, so the perfect man, or someone has control over their intellect, they can actually affect the imaginal realm, so they can actually manifest things in this world. You know, the
Why
snakes.
meditate? What is actually the purpose of meditation? All the secrets of the world lies in Tawheed. Let's say, for example, you're a Hindu sadhu and you're meditating. Why are you meditating? Why do you recite a mantra? You recite one word and you focus on that word. Let's say if I'm reciting Allah. Purpose? To remove multiple thoughts and take them to Tawheed. If I can control my mind via Tawheed, oneness and unity, I can control all of my emotions, all of my sufferings, and everything. When a thought comes of suffering, I can remove it straight away. Why are we in pain? We inflict ourselves with pain. Pain is what? Is it physical? No.
No.
What is it? It is a state of being. Perfect man takes all of this realm. So we go to Barzakh. There's a realm higher than that, known as Alam-e-Aqul, the world of the intellects, the day of judgment. It's now, here, right now, day of judgment. So in the tradition it says there's some people on the day of judgment, they won't stick around, there's no hisab for them. Like a light, they'll go into heaven. They've covered everything in this world. Everything is done. They've seen their maqam in heaven. Ayatollah Bahjud. As he prayed, he saw his maqam. That's why he screamed at the end, right? There's that young man who says, every day I used to go for Fajr to Tehran, from Tehran to Qom to pray behind him. So one day I didn't go. So why does Ayatollah Bahjud screech for at the end? What's the purpose of him screeching? Why does he screech? Is he showing off? What is it? He said that night when I went to sleep, I made the intention I wasn't going to go. I went to sleep. I saw in my dream I could see heaven. I could see the gardens. I could see all of this which was giving my soul pleasure. Then I saw Agha Bahjud, and I saw that when he finished his prayers, the door closed. And I screamed as well, and then I woke up and I realized why he screams. The reason why is that when he says Allahu Akbar, all of the levels of reality open up, Jannah open up, bliss opens up. And when he finishes and he does the final steps towards completing his prayer,
They close.
they close.
Yeah, when he was upset by
Screech,
that.
he's upset by that. So what is the perfect man? He takes all of reality. He's the in-between of all of the levels of reality. He moves from one to the other. Imam is the Imam of the jinn. He moves from one realm to the other. Where are the jinns? Alam-e-Barzakh. Moves from this realm to that realm to that realm. Angels. Jibreel, we say, who's the teacher of Jibreel? Amir al-Mu'mineen. Amir al-Mu'mineen, for example, salam, moves from one realm to the other, simultaneously going through all of these realms and interacting with all of creation because he's the Imam of all of creation. That's the perfect man. What does the perfect man do? He gels all of creation. It's Allah's substance that Allah uses, Sadr al-Awwal, the first creation, Nur of the Prophet, reality of the Prophet. And that is the gel of the entire universe. So essentially, what is perfect man? Perfect man is all of creation. He's the manifestation of ubudiyat, to be a servant, a true servant of Allah. Allah is what? Creator. It says, وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. We didn't create jinn and man, but for one purpose, to worship us. And the absolute manifestation of true worship, or ubudiyah, the perfect man. So one function of the perfect man is he's the universe, and he's the gel of the universe, he's the absolute servant, and he's the absolute faqir in front of Allah.
Thank you, Maulana. We've had a wonderful discussion this evening. We've covered many points. We've discussed the role of man and his relationship with the divine. We've discussed the role of the Quran in man's life and in the creation. We've discussed the purpose of the Messiah, or Imam Mahdi. We've discussed the utopia that, inshallah, they will bring. And we've discussed why that's necessary and why the Imam is not here with us. And you even gave us a couple of tips on how the Western 21st century person can actually aspire to bring back the Mahdi and perfect themselves. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
المهدي المهدي قادم قادم ناصر ناصر رزق الله المهدي المهدي ثاني ثاني شاهد شاهد سيف الثار المهدي المهدي فجر فجر للأحرار المهدي